And again, thank you for everyone joining us today. And we now have a few minutes for general discussion amongst us all. Today we have heard from Keith Turner, Colorado School of Mines, Kelsey McCormick, Alberta Geological Survey, Holger Kessler, Geospatial Commission in the UK, as well as Michael in the Netherlands. And so to get us started on general discussion, Keith, would you like to offer some distilled points that have emerged in our overview?
Okay, thank you, Harvey. Well, I'm convinced, first of all, that the geological modeling has a very bright future. The demand is certainly expanding into many new applications. It will become part of the required day-to-day workflow in many application areas. The current modeling activities in Europe and Southeast Asia in support of urban sustainability issues offer examples of what we can expect very soon in North America. I think finally the key challenges that remain, and we've heard several times, are the effective communication of model results to increasingly diverse audiences, and also the utilization of new video and other technologies in explaining the models to a variety of user groups.
Thank you, Keith. Kelsey, how about if you give us your summary remarks?
Yeah, you know what? I think that there's some great presentations, and I think in many cases they were just really highlighting just the amazing kind of breadth and increase in application with which these models are being used to support. And in fact, I think we've only just kind of scratched the tip of the iceberg, if you will, with what's possible. And so, I think in all cases, communication is key. I think, it's communication in terms of sharing, amongst ourselves and as groups and with our, everybody, anyone out there in terms of what it's taken, the processes and the pathways that have been, used to build these models. Then I think it's also on how do we communicate and get these models into the hands of our stakeholders. But I think we also need to make sure, stakeholders are reaching back out to whether it's, Geological Survey Organizations or whoever those model builders are, to explain how they would like to use the models or how they have used the models. If we can really get some great communication going back and forth, I think we'll really be able to kind of work together as kind of a global community to really advance this science, this multidimensional geoscience field, further at an increasingly rapid rate. Because really from that with cloud computing and a lot of these other technologies, exactly as Michelle was pointing out with AI and machine learning, that's exactly it. There's so much information and data out there. It's really looking for ways that we can, be more efficient in the way that we analyze, evaluate, assess, and ingest data and information into these models to really take them to the next level. So I think if I were to kind of summarize it, I'd say it's communication that's really kind of the key for the future, and it's really going to allow us to kind of push these models forward and allow us to integrate those models with other neighboring jurisdictions. All right, as we not only work at building those models with our own jurisdictions, but really kind of pushing to connect with others and build fully integrated 3D models, because resources don't stop at the border. When we worry about contamination issues or really understanding the subsurface, it doesn't stop at the border. So integrating with your neighbors, as you heard today, is a key going forward.
Thank you, Kelsey, and thank you everyone for keeping those questions and comments rolling into the chat. Please keep that up. Submit your thoughts in the chat. And next, Holger, would you please give us your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks everyone. And we will keep the chat also for our panel presentation on Wednesday, so nothing will get lost here. The two things for me is, first of all, that there was a slide which was not shown. My final slide was going to be a link from the current crisis we've got and flattening of graphs to the climate change challenges we've got ahead. And I think one thing that comes out that's important for me is that we need to take action and start building Earth models and share and work to solutions. So lots of what came out in the questions today, I always throw that back, and Michael brought that out very well, and Kelsey, that it's the users, the demand is growing, the users are demanding solutions and answers, and we just need to get on with it and respond and model. And then the second one, a challenge to ourselves, Harvey, and well, everyone in the room. There's a question further up about a starter kit, and then there's another question further below, which universities, where to go if I want to start. And I think that is we have to look ourselves in each other's faces and say, it's not easy to answer where to just go if you want to start. So you could go to your regional or state geological surveys and knock on their doors. You could find a university, but for someone who's listening in here, who maybe is just a private individual somewhere, it's not an easy answer. So we need to think a bit about how do we get people to start.
Thank you, Holger.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Holger. So Michael, please give us your thoughts.
Well, following on what Kelsey just said, I think to improve the communication of or with models, we need a better visual language, because up till this point in time, we have been very happy with the mere fact that we can create online visualizations on the fly. But there are two trends that are relevant here. In the Netherlands, at least, we are finding that we are now engaging with new, more and less knowledgeable users, to whom, let's say, the visual language that was always intended to be one for between experts, it simply doesn't work. And also, but even for experts, I think that the cross sections that you can create on our portals could be much improved by simply making use of the conventions that we would use in hand-drawn cross sections. And so both for experts but especially for lay audiences, I think we need better visualization. And this is also something that is discussed in the book that Keith Turner introduced. And, yeah, so I see this as a challenge, and I'm actually going to work on that a little bit as well myself, to think that through.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so we have questions coming in to the chat. And Keith, maybe you would be willing to address this question. Someone has asked, what is your advice for academic curricula that would adequately train students to do this work?
Okay, well, it's a challenge. However, there are several fairly easy to use, in other words, user-friendly interfaces and fairly low-cost modeling packages that are available that are useful in sort of teaching the principles of 3D modeling in a classroom setting. The problem the universities have is that you need to have, well, at least in a traditional sense, and even when we're all online, we have to have multiple licenses, so each student has one, and you also then need some staff helping the students push the appropriate buttons at the appropriate times and work through the problems. So, but there are solutions there. There are several modeling platforms that are not super fancy, but allow you to get into the basics and get you started, and lead you towards the more in-depth commercial packages that they might encounter in subsequent employment. And if you've got a GIS lab, a lot can be done within the GIS framework on very simple geological situations, ones that are not too complicated in terms of structural complexity.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keith. So Kelsey, maybe you would like to respond to this question. Any thoughts on the role of emerging probabilistic approaches to geologic modeling, such as the work of Florian Willman and his co-authors?
Oh, I think this is really an exciting space, and evolving rapidly. I think anywhere that we can, I mean, realistically, when you look at 3D models, they're a version of a reality. So when you look at things probabilistically, you can look at the models and multiple realizations of those models to try to kind of hone in on which is the most probable depiction of that reality, given that information and data you have. So there's such I think this is probably one of the areas where I think it's the most exciting, is we're getting away from the idea that the model in and of itself, we want to make sure that there isn't that misuse in the models when people, our stakeholders, are looking at that information and thinking, well, that's it. That's what it looks like. That's what the subsurface is, and that is the reality. It really helps us in that communication space to be able to better conceptualize and show people that our models are a version of a reality, and that we need to, as has been asked in some of the questions, and you've heard from some of the speakers, it's the ability to then incorporate that uncertainty and show people that they're, the areas of the model where we have higher certainty, and we want decision makers to be aware of this when they're making decisions. They need to understand that there is the potential uncertainties within the model, and so yeah. The benefits in some of these new approaches that are being developed really go to help integrate and incorporate the measure of uncertainty with the models.
Very good, thank you, Kelsey. So we're coming down to the final minute or two, and Holger, would you like to comment on the question that came in about cultural or other barriers between the Ordnance Survey and the Geological Survey?
Of course, there are. I just typed the answer there. There are existing barriers between whether you're in a company or in a university or in government departments. There are barriers, and they're generally to do with revenue streams, with organizational, cultural habits, but honestly, so if we stick to the UK example, those barriers are lowering all the time, and the Geospatial Commission is playing its part. I can't comment, like many of the questions today, of course, we have a very different situation in every part of the world. But I'm sure we are all aware that barriers between organizations need to come down, need to be lowered dramatically in order, as I said in my talk, to answer some of these challenging, cross-cutting, cross-disciplinary questions. And something that someone said in the chat, how can we get the UK government to take a note? And this is very simple. We have some leadership here by the Dutch Geological Survey and the ministries, which we can just point to and refer to. So in order to reduce barriers, we can point to other areas in the US and anywhere where things are getting better in terms of sharing.
Very good. Thank you, Holger and Michael. In our final seconds, I haven't identified a question for you, but Michael, would you dare to identify one or two key themes that we've brought into focus today?
I think we collectively gave a rather good overview of where we stand, and we provided some hints as to where we might be going. And that is, I think Kelsey made the point that we're in a very exciting moment in time, because the barriers to catch up to, let's say, to start 3D modeling are fairly low, whereas the advanced organizations are fairly far, I would say. So you can draw from that. So as I'm going to use Holger's phrase, let's keep modeling.
Very good. Okay, I think that's the perfect closing statement. Thank you to today's speakers. Thank you, Keith, Kelsey, Holger, and Michael. A very thought-provoking overview of the status of responding to societal needs with 3D geology. We will meet again at the same time on Thursday, and I think we can all look forward to a very lively discussion. But before we close today, thank you again to the World Community of Geological Surveys. Thank you to the American Geosciences Institute. And please, if you wish, request your continuing education credits through that are being arranged by AIPG. And so thanks everyone. See you again on Thursday.